Hello, Congress. I am Mone Smith, aka Medusa, out of Los Angeles, California. I know that people like to put gun violence on a micro scale, but this is a macro and a micro, and I've experienced both. The first that I can remember is my uncle coming home from Vietnam. The effects on him and in his life pertaining to that war was he became a heroin addict. He was very displaced. No matter how comfortable we tried to make him, he was not. So when my mother explained to me what he had been through, I could only think of movies that I've seen that in. And then I started paying attention to how young men play. And it was mostly very sheriff, the villain, pretend guns with their fingers, army men. It was completely different than the compassion that I had in my heart for people. So when you deal with a micro level of gun violence at war and policing a state, you kind of have to put them on the same playing field as the micro, because they both have the same energy. I've been in cars with young men, and when they pulled up to where all their friends were hanging out, they'd reach under the seat and put a gun on the seat, merely to show off, merely to show the power that they had because of it. Now, to feel like this man's only way of showing power was a handgun made me afraid and made me concerned for the love that he had for anyone or family. So when we don't address the feeling behind the power that these men or individuals have when it's in their hand or in their presence, which is related to mental health, then we still have a problem. I also learned that within the energy of people, when it comes to having a firearm, it's about fear, it's about showing your strength, and it's about instilling their power and thrusting it upon you. Now, that needs to be addressed. That's a micro. I went to a club and there was a shooting inside and everyone ran to their car and opened their trunk. I'd say 50% of that club was reaching for a gun. Blew my mind. Complete fear. I'm hiding behind a car when I just came to have a good time. When I witnessed it again, a friend of mine went to an apartment building to visit her cousin, walked out into an alleyway to empty the trash, and got caught in a car in a crossfire. And I never saw this woman again. We were all of 17 years old. This was our friend, and she was pregnant. So to deal with a handgun, it has to be dealt on a micro and macro level. If we do not do safety checks for your mental before you receive a handgun, then there is no way that anyone should be receiving it. We have to deal with the desensitizing through video games that youngsters are playing. To have that at your access, a thumb access to kill someone or rob them, it's desensitizing our youth. So when they want to deal with a problem, that's the first thing they think of. So we not only have to deal with the mental issue, we have to deal with the things that are creating the mental issue. In addition to that, there is a certain level of love and consistency in the home that is sometimes not happening to every individual. Therefore, they're dealing with their own issues on their own as a youth through television, through friends, and video games. That's scary to me. So when we deal with, I'm asking you to deal with it on a micro and macro level. I'm asking you to not just become a Congress member, but become a parent in your mind so that we deal with it from a heart space and we deal with it all the way across the board with every individual with as much love, care, and concern with their household and upbringing as possible. I am a teacher at Cal Arts in California. I teach hip hop, and within the dialogue of hip hop, there's a lot of violence based on what another MC or artist is doing. So I have to strip that energy away from my students to make them realize that they have something valid to say without pretending to be something they're not. So there are so many ways that you can lose yourself and find a friend in a handgun, find the power in a handgun. We have to strip that down on a micro and macro level and create a new option. There has to be an option of dialogue. There has to be counseling that is constantly given. There has to be a mental check when it comes to police before they even start their shift. There has to be a constant counseling check in school so that they know they are heard and they have a place to go to discuss what they're feeling, because sometimes it's not in the home. So I do this with the hope for the future and these children to have a space to share their dialogue, their fears, their power struggles when they can't do it in the home. And if we do this, this will create jobs for those that see themselves as being full, therapeutic individuals with love and hope in their hearts, and they can pass it off to the youngsters that aren't receiving it. I know this is extreme, but if we melted down all of the illegal handguns and used it to create living situations on farmlands for homeless families so that we can get them back to agriculture and the love of nature, that might make a difference. But more than anything, it's about saving the children's future. So be micro on this thought and be macro on this thought, and strip it down to those that are going to deliver in love. I appreciate your time. I hope I've gotten my point across, and do it with love and compassion. Thank you.